Do you notice yourself doing things that you don't quite fully understand? You say yes, even when you want to say no. You feel anxious, even when life is calm. And you try to fix everyone else's problems, but you can't seem to fix your own. These are not personality flaws that you have, they're coping mechanisms, protective strategies that your younger self developed to help you deal with the chaotic environment that is growing up with an alcoholic parent. I'm Corey. I'm a trauma-informed mind-body practitioner, and I work with adult children of alcoholics to help them come out of survival and finally find safety. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through 7 common coping mechanisms that nearly every adult child of an alcoholic will develop, and how to start healing from each one. Because once you understand why you do what you do, you can finally start moving forward and healing. When you grow up around addiction, you are growing up in constant, chaotic unpredictability. Some days your parent is actually loving and fun and really enjoyable to be around. They're the parent that you need and you want. And other days they're angry or they're scary, they're withdrawn, they're emotionally unavailable to you and your needs. And because of this constant diversity in personality that you get from your parent, because it feels like, for me, it felt like I was living with Jekyll and Hyde. One day my parent would be one person and the next day they would be the other. And because of this, you get really, really good at learning to read the room, to anticipate the people around you, their moods, their actions, their behaviors. What are they going to do next? And this gets you really, really good at staying alert and anticipating maybe danger or the next blow up that's going to happen. But over time, these behaviors, they start to become your habits. And these habits follow you then into adulthood, even when the danger or the perceived threat of your alcoholic parent may not be around. Like, you may not even be living with your alcoholic parent. You may be like me and moved halfway across the world to get away from them at one point. But it doesn't mean that all of these habits, coping mechanisms, behaviors that we have developed from living in that environment for so long, it doesn't mean that they just disappear. Unfortunately, we have to become aware of these patterns, of these habits, of these behaviors, and then do what we can, which I'm going to show you in this video, to change them. So let's talk about the 7 most common ones and what you can do to start healing from them today. So the first one is people pleasing. And this is something everyone who is a child of an alcoholic can relate to. But on the flip side of that, the healing side of that, is learning to set boundaries. As a child, you might have learned that being easy to get along with or saying yes to everything was a way of keeping yourself safe. It most likely reduced any conflict between you and your parent. It most likely kept them happy and made life just a little less disruptive. So now, as an adult, you might still feel responsible for other people and their happiness or their moods or the outcome from a certain situation. So you end up saying yes to maybe doing things that you actually truly want to say no to, because actually disappointing someone doesn't feel safe. It nearly feels dangerous. You come up against this resistance of anxiety that, oh, if I say no to maybe my friends asking me to, I don't know, go to the pub and have a drink when I'm really trying to focus on my healthy habits, well, maybe they won't like me anymore. Maybe they won't want to be my friend. Maybe if I say no, they're never going to ask me to do anything again. So I say yes because I don't want to disappoint or let other people down. But when we people please over a long period of time, this is such an energy drainer. An energy drainer on maybe the small bit of energy that we do have to put into ourselves. So instead of focusing and channeling our energy into what we want to do, we're focusing and channeling our energy into things that other people want us to do. And in the long run, that doesn't feel good. It doesn't serve us. What it actually causes is merely a resentment towards others and towards ourselves for not being able to just say no and do the things that we truly deep down want to do. But true healing actually begins when you start picking honesty over harmony, when you stop trying to just keep the peace for the sake of it and not ruffle someone's feathers, and actually start being true to yourself. And you don't have to start big, okay? When it comes to setting boundaries, I started so small. It can be something as easy as someone asks you to do something and you just say, no, sorry, that doesn't actually work for me. Or even simpler, taking time to think and Ponder over a yes or a no before you commit to something. So if someone asks you to do something you don't want to do, instead of saying yes or no straight away, actually say, hey, let me think about that. I'll come back to you. Because giving yourself that little bit of time and that little bit of space is going to allow you to feel a little bit more comfortable and confident in your response of saying, maybe, actually, no, that doesn't work for me this time around, but maybe next time. And this is something I really want you to take home about setting boundaries. They are not selfish, they're actually an act of self love and an act of self respect. So, the second coping mechanism that is so common is perfectionism. And on the flip side of that is allowing yourself to actually make mistakes. When you grew up walking on eggshells, you most likely believe that if you could be perfect, everything would be okay. So now, as an adult, you most likely hold yourself to impossible standards, terrified of getting things wrong or making a mistake or, God forbid, failing at something. But perfectionism is literally just control dressed up as achievement. It's your nervous system trying to prevent the feelings of rejection, because no one likes the feeling of rejection. But when you grew up in an environment of constantly walking on eggshells and feeling like the world would fall apart if you weren't perfect, there's a deeper layer of complexity that's surrounding that feeling of rejection. It's not just rejection, it's what is attached to that. But healing truly happens when you just allow yourself to be human. We cannot be perfect all the time, and failure is an inevitable part of life. So start reminding yourself that making mistakes don't make me unworthy, they make me human. Your worth is not tied to how perfect you do something or how perfect you perform, but how gently can you treat yourself when you do fail, when you do make a mistake, when you do stumble, or when you veer off this healing path? How kind and compassionate can you actually be to yourself? Number three, this is a massive one for me, emotional suppression. And the healing flip side of that is actually learning to understand and release your emotions. As a child, expressing your emotions, you most likely didn't have space to do that. And it kind of felt a little bit pointless. No one actually listened to you, or if you did express your emotions to your parent, like I did many, many times, probably not very well, it actually made things worse. So I learned that expressing your emotions doesn't solve a problem, it doesn't help the situation. It actually made my situation worse. So why would I do that? So what I learned to do was shut down my feelings altogether. I became emotionally numb. And I didn't as much disassociate, where a lot of people do, and you might find that you disassociate. I just shut down my emotions completely, to the point where I didn't feel any of the negative, yucky emotions that come with having an alcoholic parent. I didn't feel any good ones either, though, because unfortunately, when we shut down our emotions, we can't just pick and choose to shut down the bad ones. We shut down the good ones as well. But what I learned over a very long period of healing and becoming sick mentally and physically is that by suppressing your emotions or shutting them down or turning them off, it doesn't make them disappear. It actually just traps them within our bodies. And true healing starts when we become able to name what we are feeling, and when we become able to actually feel what we're feeling. And it can be something as simple as even saying to yourself, because I know how difficult it is to say this to those around you, like a loved one or a partner or even a friend, when you haven't done it ever, maybe. It can be really, really hard to verbalize and vocalize how we are feeling. For me, it felt like the words were constantly getting stuck in my throat. But you can start by saying it to yourself. Something as simple as, I feel sad today, or I feel tense, I feel alone, I feel overwhelmed, I feel really ashamed. And once you start to name it, once you start to become aware of what you're feeling, it becomes much easier for your body to actually start releasing it then. And when you start being able to name the feelings and recognize them, you can bring in extra tools then. So maybe like journaling. Again, if you're like me and you couldn't verbalize how you're feeling to others, I wrote it down. Writing and journaling has been so, so powerful for me to release and work through a lot of the negative emotions that I've been holding on to for so, so long, that have actually made me really physically unwell. I just wasn't aware of it at the time. So journaling, through allowing yourself to sit there and connect to the breath. So with a bit of breath work, closing your eyes, deep breath in and out, and just allowing your body to settle and really feel, what are you feeling inside? For me, my anger is in my chest all the time. And allow myself to sit with that and breathe into that, again, is a fantastic way of releasing it. Or my other favorite one is mindful movement, allowing the emotion to come out with movement. And some people say, oh, I don't like doing yoga because every time I do yoga, I cry. And I'm like, fucking fantastic. That's great. I wish every time I did yoga, I could cry, because it would be a great way of getting the emotions out. But a lot of the time, when our mind is connected to the body, and when we're tuning within, like a practice like yoga, which is very self-reflective and internal focused, it can actually bring a lot of emotion that needs to be worked through to the surface. So if that happens to you, allow it. It's like, that is a win in my eyes. If you are doing movement or tai chi or yoga or stretching, or even if you're doing a certain stretch and you're feeling a lot of emotion, maybe a lot of anger or tension or sadness arise, lean into that. That is your body's way of releasing what you need to release. Feeling emotions, even though it's probably something that we're taught as a child is weak and vulnerability is weakness, it's actually not weakness. Allowing yourself to feel your emotions and work through them and release them is making space for peace and joy in your life. And you may not have had space for that up until now. Number 4, again, a big one for me, hyperindependence. And the flip side of that is learning to ask for help. When your parent who is an alcoholic is not available, whether that's emotionally or physically, when you're a child, you learn that I can rely on myself. I don't actually need anyone to help me get through this life. For me, especially, I learned a lot of things by myself. I learned to kind of just get on with it and figure things out as I went, and probably took me 4 times as long to achieve anything, but I still managed to figure everything out myself. And I kind of had a lot of pride attached to that like, I don't need anyone. Like, I don't actually need anyone to help me in this life. But what comes with that is exhaustion, because this hyper independent trait, although has served me very well in life, is a self protection mechanism. Is my nervous system and your nervous system, if you suffer with the similar trait, saying is that I don't actually want to rely on other people, because deep down I don't want to be disappointed again. Because there have been so many times in my life where I've relied on my alcoholic parent for pretty big things in life, and I've been constantly let down or disappointed. And I knew going into these situations, or maybe opportunities with my parent, because my parent is an extremely intelligent person, very, very, very smart, and has come up with a lot of opportunities that could have been very, very successful in life. And I have been involved in some of them. And I knew, though, going into there, deep down, my intuition screaming at me that you are going to end up getting hurt and disappointed. And I did. It happened every time. So now I learned, growing up and going through my 20s and now my early 30s, is that, well, I don't actually need anyone. When in reality I do, but it's my nervous system and my body's way of saying, well, if you don't lean on someone, then you can't get hurt or let down. But healing starts with letting safe people in and letting them actually offer you support. And that could be something as small as asking a friend for help with a very, very simple thing or task, asking them for advice on something, or sharing how you feel about something. I really started off with asking for advice. And to be honest, I used to ask for advice on things I didn't really need advice on. It was kind of just a way of practicing asking someone for something that didn't feel so big. So if I wanted advice on, I don't know, whatever, what car to buy, something random, I would probably deep down know what I wanted to buy, but I would put myself in that position so I could get used to just asking and reaching out to other people. So start small. You don't need to start off by asking someone this massive, big favor. Start off asking for a little piece of advice. Start off asking someone to maybe pick you something up in the shop when they're coming over, calling over to you to say hello. It's actually okay to need others. We do need others. And connection and strengthening that connection with others is not a weakness. It's a massive, massive strength. And it's a massive opportunity that we need in this life. So number 5, over responsibility. And the healing flip side of that is letting other people take over. So as a child, you most likely took on a lot of adult roles. And that will look very different depending on the type of alcoholic parent that you had, and depending on the environment or the support system that you might have had also around you as a child. And most likely at the time, this responsibility probably made you feel powerful growing up. Probably made you feel like, yeah, I can do anything. I don't need your people. Like, I can look after this family. I can look after my siblings. I can look after all the household duties. But as an adult, this sense of over responsibility, this sense of having to do everything yourself, like hyper independence, can become a real burden. And what you might find, this is something I can really relate to, is that you start to worry or feel guilty when other people struggle with something. So you start to like jump in straight away to try and help them. Or you start trying to like fix problems that aren't your problem to fix. But healing actually starts to happen when you let other people carry their own weight. Start by slowly noticing the difference of, am I helping this person, which is perfectly fine to do. Helping others is a big part of life. But there's a difference between helping and rescuing. You can love someone, you can have friends, you can have people in work, and you can still let them face their own consequences. That's not you being cold, it's actually healthy. So, number 6 is avoidance. And the flip side of that is facing discomfort with compassion. As a child, avoidance most likely kept you safe, ignoring the problem, staying in your room, or pretending that everything is okay. But as an adult, avoidance actually keeps you disconnected from intimacy and growth in life. You might avoid difficult conversations, especially with a loved one, like a romantic partner, or distract yourself when any sort of like difficult or uncomfortable emotions start to arise. But healing begins when you allow yourself to face discomfort gently. You don't have to dive in headfirst straight away, but just start noticing. Why am I trying to avoid this difficult conversation? And what is it trying to protect me from? Because compassion, not judging yourself for not having the ability to have maybe a difficult conversation or build intimacy, allowing yourself to have compassion for the reason why you may be like that, helps you move forward from this without criticizing yourself even more than you probably already do. And the last one, number 7, control, which is something we can all probably relate to. And the flip side of that is learning to let go. When you grow up in chaos, control becomes your anchor. It's like your safety net. You learn, if I can manage and control everything, like people's emotions or the outcome of something, maybe I can actually prevent pain. Maybe I can prevent the scary situations that happen from when you have an alcoholic parent. Control is absolutely exhausting, and all it does is keep you stuck in survival mode. Healing actually means to trust yourself and other people. When you let go, when you start to release a little bit of that control, it doesn't mean that you're powerless. You're actually taking back some of your power. Because when you finally feel safe enough to stop gripping onto things so tightly, you finally start living life to the fullest. So, all of these coping mechanisms, whether it's people pleasing, perfectionism, control, avoidance, they were all brilliant coping mechanisms at one point in your life. Very much needed skills. But one thing we have to learn, especially as adult children of alcoholics, is that we're not the child anymore that needs to keep clinging on to these coping mechanisms to get through life. Because most likely, they have served us so well up until a point, but now they're holding you back. So, as I say all the time, healing is not about fixing yourself. I'm not saying there's something wrong with you. It's about firstly understanding yourself, understanding the coping mechanisms that you may be using in your own life, understanding why am I using them and how can I let these go. And when you start working with your mind and your body, you're going to notice that these old patterns, coping mechanisms, survival strategies actually start to fade out of your life. So remember, if you are ticking off all of these coping mechanisms and saying, yep, I can relate to every single one of you, you developed them for a reason, but now it's time to let them go. If this video resonated with you, if you liked it, please like and subscribe to my channel so you can continue on this journey with me of healing from the pain of having an alcoholic parent.